We give it many names, speaking of a mysterious thread connecting us one to another, speaking to the deep wisdom at the center of being, and we embody the yearning of all people to touch each other more deeply, to hear each other more keenly, to see each other's joys and sorrows as our own, and to know that we are not alone. Now I invite you to join in saying the words to accompany lighting our chalice as Booker lights it for us. Within the heart of the community, there is a fire that warms and dances. Within the heart of each of us, there is a spark of the spirit of life.
Shall we gather at the river, where bright angels' feet have gone, with this crystal tide forever, flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Where we reach the shining river, lady of the silver spray, we will walk and worship ever on the happy golden day. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God.
Our story today is an adaptation of the story Hide and Seek with God by Mary Ann Moore. And this story begins in a place that you maybe recognize, a house. Once upon a time, there were 3 siblings who were utterly bored with the coronavirus pandemic. They were sick of homeschooling, sick of each other, sick of their house. They needed something to do. I know, let's play hide and seek, said the youngest. We don't have any friends to play with, said the middle child. The oldest sibling thought for a while. You know, I once heard a story about how you can play hide and seek with God. What? The other two said together. I don't even know what God is, the littlest replied. The middle sibling responded. I know that a lot of people have a lot of different names for God. God, Brahma, the One, Asherah, Allah, Gaia, the Divine, Love. I think there's even more than that. I think you might understand a little better if we just play, advised the oldest child. The oldest decided to look close on the earth and soon came to a meadow. He stopped to admire the tender new shoots of grass pushing their way up toward the sun. As he bent over to look more closely, he realized there was something special and amazing and wonderful about those tender green shoots returning after a long winter. So he jumped up and ran back to home base, calling out, I found God. God is green and growing. I found God in the grass. Meanwhile, the youngest child lay back on the earth and listened. They heard birds calling and chipmunks responded. They heard wind blowing and grass rustling. They could feel their heartbeat to the sounds around them. It almost seemed like everything in nature was working together like an orchestra. The youngest child felt magic in the way that everything was connected and interdependent. They thought, this is special and amazing and wonderful. But when they came back to home base, they said, I found magic, but I'm not sure if I want to call it God. The middle child decided to look for God in the night. She watched the sun go down and saw the lights in the houses go out. As the peaceful night wrapped itself around her, she listened very hard, and then she realized there was something special and amazing and wonderful about it. There was also something utterly mysterious about it. When it was so still that she could see and hear nothing at all, she jumped up and ran to home base, calling out, I found God. God is dark and peaceful. I found God in the night. Together, the siblings decided to look down the street. They saw people waiting for food outside of the Smith Vocational High School. There were families picking up meals from volunteers. People were sharing greetings and kind words, checking in with each other after a long week. As the siblings watched, they realized there was something special and amazing and wonderful right there. They turned around and ran to home base, calling out, I found God. God is love and sharing and kindness. I found God in people who care for others. They decided to look for God together again, but first they needed a snack. They went in the front door of their house and saw the mirror in the hall. Suddenly, they realized there was something special and amazing and wonderful reflected in the mirror. Out into the yard they ran, tagging home base and calling out, we found God. We found God in us and in the love between us. The oldest child said, I had so much fun. Weren't those good hiding places? Sometimes it was easy to find God and sometimes it wasn't so clear. That's okay, because the most important thing is just to play the game and notice. Let's do it again. And now it's time for our community greeting, where we invite you all to greet each other in the chat. So you can go over to where it says everyone in your chat and type in words of greeting on this cold, rainy day. Craig and Diane say it's so glad to be together. Milo, Ginny, and Eugene say good morning to everyone. Good morning from Sherry Hall Smith. It's great to be with you all. It's nice to see everyone from Betsy Potter. Molly Hale says, saw it. Oh, she liked the story. Thank you and good morning to everyone. Joan says it's warmer here now with everyone together. I agree. Oh, Steve Kramer and Teresa Amabile say they see God in each of us. Naomi says, so great to be here with everyone, sending love and good wishes. It's so wonderful to see everybody's messages. Thank you so much.
I was just told to unmute. And Booker just said you're going to get more of that Bush duet. So, but please don't make it a duet. Please make it a chorus. I invite you to join now in singing hymn number 78, Color and Fragrance. Is that okay?
Color and fragrance, magical rhythm, sweet changing music, will change us with them. Life within life, inner light, gently glowing. Surely you seem to be God's vision growing. O starry heavens, worlds of all splendor, suns without number, new life engender. Wheel in a wheel with the light brightly glowing, moving in harmony, God's vision growing. And full of pebbles, how mountain passes, depths of the ocean, dew on the grasses, great things and small, with the light gently glowing, bird of the wordless song, God's vision growing. Shaper of all things, to us to live, a chance to keep here on earth of heaven, moving in harmony, light gently glowing, daily gracefully, God's vision growing.
You're all set, Cherry. You can speak.
Okay, just waiting to be unmuted. My name's Cherry Sullivan, and I'm a member of the worship committee. And I wanted to offer a reflection today about this being a time for doing things differently. So throughout this crisis, I've been thinking a lot about how this can be a time for renegotiation of relationships and how they function. Personally, I still meet with many different people for a variety of purposes. I have multiple Zoom meetings a day for work, many of which focus on understanding and solving the inequalities further exacerbated by this current crisis. I've attended and hosted game nights with friends, discussion groups with my softball team at a time when we would begin practice outside, book and movie discussions, and family birthday parties. And obviously here in worship together. Interestingly, though I consider myself to be an extrovert, it took me a while to begin to have more regular virtual contact with people who were important to me. As a person who is fueled by in-person connections, I've had a difficult time transitioning to virtual platforms as my main source of connection. I've been thinking about what purpose, what meaning virtual gatherings offer for me. I've recognized that this has been a time for social renegotiation of our expectations of ourselves, a vision of our relationships, and reimagining our broader social networks. I've come up with a few guidelines that I'm trying my hardest to follow during this time of renegotiation. They don't exclusively apply to developing virtual connections, but I believe guidelines are important because we are in a new world with new social rules and with new limitations on our emotional capacity to be as we were before. Basic human connection has changed, and therefore the rules or the norms will change along with it. For example, maybe before COVID, you were a family who had an expectation that you ate most dinners together. But now, perhaps you are a family who spends all day together, and supper is an opportunity for some alone time. Other patterns and expectations we have for ourselves are changing too. I try to remind myself to pause and ask, given this new reality, what are some of the needs that I have now? Will the outcome of the gathering feel the same in a virtual world? And is that okay? So for example, I had the idea of hosting an April birthday party, just like we do in person for everyone in my family who has an April birthday. And that's a lot of people. Getting some of my family members ready to participate online was challenging, walking them through how to download the app and practicing using it together. And when it came to birthday party day, I knew we were ready. I felt great. But what resulted was awkward. The most awkward April Sullivan birthday party ever. Nobody really knew what to do or what to say or when to say it. I kept asking myself, what is the purpose of this gathering and how can I facilitate it? What do we want to talk about? Who wants to talk in what order? Overall, we connected, but new challenges arose that wouldn't have if we celebrated in person like we always do. And I know we'll get better with time. So my work and my training is in public health, and I know that loneliness impacts our health. We feel much less lonely when our social needs are met through some sort of connection. And for the welfare of not just ourselves, but our broader community, we have a responsibility to hold one another, an obligation to truthfully express what our own needs are and to actively honor others' needs. I really wanted to write this reflection because it's important to me. It's something I've been thinking about and because Janet asked me to. And between providing schooling for the kids, a full-time job, and the invisible layers of stress that COVID has put on me, I felt that I didn't have the time or the energy or the concentration to do so. Instead, I spent a lot of my evenings doing things that are not my norm, like diving into multiple Netflix series to use my imagination and my creativity in a much more passive way, which is what I've needed. And it takes practice to change our habits, our thoughts, and our actions to do what is needed. I'm laughing because clearly you have to also renegotiate this idea with pets. I have a cat who is trying to get at my paper computer screen. Brene Brown said, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequality, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given an opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature." I love that quote, but I doubt it's really truly possible to go that deep and to change that much. But it doesn't hurt to hold on to a dream. To aim for a new social order, we will have to practice negotiating something new in our close relationships, our work life, and within these social networks. When's a better time to practice than now? So my invitation to all of you is to take that notion of reevaluation and revision to your own lives. And I believe that we can learn from one another.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you so much. I am unmuted. It's asking me if I want to unmute my microphone, but it is unmuted. Yes? It's now time for our offering and our offering music. We have seen incredible, incredible generosity on the part of this congregation over the last 6-7 weeks as we have donated everything that we've received through offering donations to organizations in the community, the Alden Baptist Church, the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, the Western Mass Asylum Network, which is supporting particularly transgender people who are trying to apply for asylum. And we have already sent sizable contributions. We have $3,000 to divide among those 3 organizations again this week. And so your generosity is just making a huge, huge difference. Also, many of you are continuing to contribute to Arita's GoFundMe site and to our Sanctuary Fund, and that is very much needed as well. So thank you for all you have done. And you can donate on our website with our donate button, or you can send us a check. And I know you are also supporting other organizations in the community that are doing incredible work. Thank you. Thank you all for those beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pictures and your other contributions. The Reverend Andrea Evasion's guest column this past week, I think it was last Saturday, gave me some inspiration for this service. She wrote, "I do not know why or how prayer works. It is, I believe, mysterious and unknowable. But if you are praying, your prayers are probably helping to quiet your racing heart and bringing comfort to others." So let's quiet our hearts for a moment together this morning. Let's breathe in compassion, breathe solace for those who are suffering, for those whose loved ones have died. Breathe gratitude and support for healthcare workers and everyone else who is risking their safety to provide the things that the rest of us need. Let's hold in the mind's eye the beauty of spring emerging all around us, and hold in our hearts the comfort and the presence of this gathered community. Let's take a moment together in silence.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life a shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
So we have another fable this morning. This is a slightly abbreviated version of William Steig's Yellow and Pink. Two wooden figures are lying in the sun on an old newspaper. The yellow one sits up. "Do I know you?" he asks Pink. And do you happen to know what we're doing here? They look around them at the beautiful countryside. Yellow says, I can't help wondering how we got here. Pink looks at Yellow. He thinks Yellow is just fine, just about perfect. Someone must have made us, says Pink. Yellow says, how could someone have made me? I'm intricate. Why would they leave us like this with no explanation? If someone had made us, we would have met them. I'd say we just happened. Pink starts laughing. Don't laugh, says Yellow. Stop and think. In enough time, lots of unusual things could have happened, say over millions and millions and millions of years. Ridiculous, Pink says. Yellow persists. What if, say, a branch broke off a tree? Next slide. A branch broke off a tree and fell on a sharp rock that split it. There are your legs. And then later, maybe, winter comes along and ice makes a small crack. And there you've got a mouth. And then maybe one day, a hurricane takes the branch, sends it tumbling down a rocky hill. It gets shaped over and over and smoothed out by sand and rocks. And then later, maybe many years later, lightning strikes and splits it, and there you have hands and fingers and toes. All right. Pink interrupts. What about eyes and ears? What about nostrils? Woodpeckers, says Yellow. Or hailstones hitting over and over again in exactly the right place. And how does that make the eyes able to see, says Pink. Don't be ridiculous, says Yellow. That's what eyes are for. Pink decides to go along for the sake of conversation, but he wonders, okay, how could this have happened more than once? And how did we get our colors? And why are we different and both perfect? Yellow says, why not? In a million years, lots of things could have happened. And as to colors, let's say someone spilled pink paint at the bottom of a hill that you happened to roll down. And the same thing for me, only it was yellow. Pink says, wait a minute, how come the paint job is so good? No splotches, no missed places. And what about the buttons? 3 black buttons all in a row for you, 3 white perfect buttons all in a row for me. Yellow is silent. He says, some things will just have to remain a mystery. And besides, why are we arguing? It's such a beautiful day. Just then, a man who needs a haircut comes shambling along. He picks up Pink, he picks up Yellow. He says, nice and dry. He puts them both under his arms and heads back to where he came from. Yellow turns his head to whisper in Pink's ear, who is this guy? Pink has no idea. That's got to be one of my favorites. Like Yellow and Pink, we are meaning-making creatures, questioning creatures, wondering creatures. People are trying to make meaning now out of what is happening. To understand the origins and spread of coronavirus, we need to look to science and to find hope in a time of despair, to gain solace and strength. We can look to theology. That's another quote from Andrea Vasion's recent Gazette column. To find hope and solace, we can turn to faith, to what we believe in most deeply, to what for each of us is holy. What for you is holy? What word or words do you use? Stillness? God, the One, Brahma, Allah, Ashira, Spirit of Life, human kindness and connection, the beauty and the wonder and the intricacy of the natural world. Do words fail to express it? As I said, I love this story with these 2 wooden figures lying in a piece of newspaper, wondering how they got there. Yellow figures they evolved through natural processes. Pink argues for the existence of a creator. And that wood carver, who like many of us needs a haircut, comes along to check on them to see if they're dry. Who is this guy? Pink wants to know, and Yellow wants to know, and Pink, who's the one who believes in a creator, has no idea. Whose side is William Steig, the author, on? I have no idea. I'm not even sure he's taking sides. That for me is part of the beauty of this story. So I have been very episodically dipping into a book called Confessions of a Philosopher by Brian McGee. McGee was a writer, a documentary producer, a politician who died in July of last year. And he was fascinated, he writes, from a very early age by big questions like, has the universe always existed? Has time always existed? If not, how could they possibly have begun? Yes and no answers to those questions both pose problems. And then there are lots of other big questions, like why are we here? What purpose, if any, does our existence serve? What, if anything, underlies moral principles and gives them what truth they have? I was fascinated with philosophy when I first encountered it in college. I actually took 4 semesters, and I told my father at one point that I was considering philosophy as a major, and he said, I had to take a semester of philosophy my freshman year. It was the most pointless and incomprehensible stuff I had ever read in my life. So there. For thousands of years, though, in human history, philosophy and religion overlapped. And then the disciplines of science came along, and science began to provide a different foundation, one based on empirical data and testing, independent verification, constant revision of theories to fit new data as they emerged. But even today, the biggest questions remain unanswerable. Why is there anything at all? Does it have a purpose? Is there a life force? God, Brahma, Allah, Ashira, spirit of life? Why is there so much suffering? I know some of us are carefully rationing our news consumption to try to limit exposure to evidence of greed and evil and cold-heartedness on the part of some people in power and others. The question of evil was one that Kathy Lilly mulled over a little bit a few weeks ago, a month ago now. And all of these questions are beyond the realm of science. They belong still to religion and to the arts, and maybe also to the wisdom of children. The big questions stretch and challenge us, and for me, they can invite curiosity and hope and wonder, and be at times a respite from the here and now. So our friend Jim Jackson is a visual artist who began turning his paintings and sculptures into animations 15 plus years ago when the technology was still very new. And I borrowed the title for this service from one of his creations, which he called Deity Dialogue. We're going to show you a very small portion of it now. And also with his permission, we're going to put the link on our YouTube site, our YouTube channel, so you can watch it in case you're interested in seeing the whole thing. Jessica's going to put up a little bit of it now. it's not everyone's taste. It occurred to me in the middle of the night last night that my father hated abstract art, and he would have absolutely hated that. But in Jim's video, something arises out of nothing and takes shape into living forms. He sees many images of the deity in that. So if you watch it again, you can see what you think. Something arises out of nothing and takes shape into living forms, into an argument, into an exploration. Shapes morph into other shapes. Then there's the story that Jessica read earlier, which is another fable about playing hide and seek with God. God, the children discover, is in everything. And there's actually a theological term for that notion. It's called panentheism. Panentheism is the idea that the universe is in God, that the divine permeates every part of the universe, and that it extends beyond nature as well. Panentheists think of God as a force, a being that cooperates with and co-creates the world with us, with the rest of creation. And the goal, in some views, is to achieve greater beauty and complexity. That idea actually shows up a little bit in the last verse of the hymn, Color and Fragrance, which reads, "Shaper of all things, to us you've given our chance to keep on earth, to make on earth a heaven." It doesn't happen very often, and I haven't done it recently, but when I have burrowed deep into the weeds of this philosophy, it's the thing that makes the most sense to me. Some of us might experience something similar. We do experience something similar through music or other arts or through a gathering of people like this one. What do you need right now? We ask for pictures of the things that are bringing you comfort. As Andrea said, people are trying to make meaning out of what we're experiencing, and we're trying to hang on. It's kind of like being on a hike, but with no idea where you're going or how long it will take, without having had any time or wherewithal to prepare, to get in shape. Your shins hurt. You're getting blisters. Are we still going up or are we going down? Where are we? Will we ever get back to where we started from? Will where we started from be there? And as Cherry suggests, should it be? Your shins hurt. You're getting blisters. Your companions may be getting on our nerves. Sometimes we're worried and we're afraid. We may be on even ground for half a mile or so, and then suddenly things get rocky or steep or stony, or we're slogging around in cold fog or pouring rain. And there are times, as someone put, was it Joanna who put in the chat, when the rain is gentle, where the sun shines. I hope you're noticing the beautiful things along the way. I hope you're finding the holy in the world around you, like the children in the story that Jessica read, in signs of spring, in silly jokes like that one about the Last Supper, possibly even in each other's Facebook posts. I hope you're able to take time, if it's helpful for you, to meditate or to pray, to walk with intention or just to meander, and to wonder sometimes, as Cherry suggests, what am I learning from this? What changes are needed? What do I need now? How is this time challenging me, inviting me to make some changes? I know that we will continue to support and bless one another, to keep one another and to welcome, as we are, new people into this community. We will continue to be here for one another, to see each other's joys and sorrows as our own, and to know and continue to know that even though we're apart, we are not alone. And now I invite you to sing with us the beautiful Transylvanian hymn, Find a Stillness.
Find the stillness, hold the stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Find the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, help me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Go now into your week with hope, carried by the presence of this gathered community and all that sustains you. Go in peace.
Thank you all so much for being with us today. Thank you for your very sweet messages in the chat. Thanks to Cherry Sullivan